Welcome to Vintage Noise. Today we're looking at a car that really didn't just represent pre-war luxury, it pretty much defined it. The Mercedes-Benz 500K, an absolute masterpiece, built only for a couple of years between 1934 and 1936.
Yeah, it's definitely a pivotal car. I mean, it followed the Mercedes-Benz 380, which was elegant, sure, but the 500K just jumped into a whole different league.
How so?
Well, it married this incredible opulence with genuinely groundbreaking engineering, and the key really is right there in the name.
A K.
The K for compressor, supercharger. That was the game changer.
Okay, so let's get into that. We want to unpack the engineering that made it so fast, the coachwork that made it, well, beautiful, frankly, and the rarity that means these things command millions today.
Yeah.
Let's start with that compressor then. This car was intended to be sort of the king of the road, wasn't it? Dominating those early Autobahns.
Absolutely.
What exactly was under that long bonnet that gave it such legendary status?
Okay, so the heart of it was a big 5.0-liter straight-eight engine, 4,984 cc to be
The
precise.
straight eight, wow.
Yeah. But it wasn't just about the size. The really fascinating part was how that power was delivered, thanks to the root-driven supercharger.
How did that work in practice? Was it always on?
No, and that's the clever bit. You had a choice. You could just cruise along smoothly, under normal aspiration. That gave you about 100 horsepower.
Okay. Respectable for the time.
Respectable, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you needed that extra punch, maybe for overtaking or just because you wanted to feel it, you pushed the throttle right to the floor.
All the way down.
All the way. That engaged the compressor clutch. You'd hear this characteristic whine, and suddenly the power output just screamed up to 180 brake horsepower.
180, that's a huge jump.
Huge, and it meant serious speed for the era. Over 160 kilometers per hour, which is what, nearly 100 miles per hour?
Nearly 100 mile per hour in 1934. That's flying. But hang on, the numbers sometimes confuse people today, right? That top speed is amazing, but the 0 to 60 time, wasn't it something like 16, 17 seconds?
Around 16.5 seconds, yeah. And you're right, by modern standards, that sounds slow for 180 horsepower.
So what's the disconnect?
It's about context. What did blistering performance mean back then? It wasn't about traffic light sprints like today. 16 seconds was incredibly fast for a massive, heavy luxury car designed to cross continents in style.
Okay, so the goal is an acceleration. It was sustained speed, high-speed cruising.
Exactly. Effortless dominance on those new motorways. The ability to maintain high speeds for hours without straining the engine. That's what the compressor really delivered.
Makes sense. But that kind of power, especially with a supercharger back then, it must have had a cost.
Oh, a massive one. Fuel consumption.
How bad are we talking?
We're talking sometimes up to 30 liters per 100 kilometers, maybe even more if you were really pushing it.
Wow, that's thirsty.
Incredibly thirsty. That was the price you paid for having 180 supercharged horses on tap in the 1930s. Definitely a car for the wealthy.
Right. And Mercedes knew that raw power and, well, expense wasn't the whole story for the world's elite. They had to nail the comfort and handling too, didn't they? What was going on with the chassis?
This is where the 500K got really, truly revolutionary for its time. It used the independent suspension system that they'd actually pioneered on the earlier 380 model.
Independent suspension. Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. So it featured a double wishbone front axle and a double joint swing axle at the rear. And importantly, it used coil springs and hydraulic dampers all around.
So unlike older cars with stiff axles and leaf springs.
Exactly. Think about it. On most cars back then, even luxury ones, if one wheel hit a bump, the whole car sort of jolted, right? Because the wheels were connected by a solid axle.
Yeah, you feel it right through the car.
But with this independent setup, each wheel could move up and down on its own, absorbing bumps much better. It was genuinely a world first for a production car of this class.
And the impact.
It transformed the ride. It went from being a potentially quite harsh traditional pre-war machine to a genuine grand tourer. Comfortable over long distances, much better handling, and significantly safer too. It really justified that premium price tag.
And that focus on usability, on comfort, must have broadened its appeal beyond just, daredevil gentleman drivers.
Absolutely. The smoother ride made it much more attractive to a wider range of wealthy buyers. That included the growing number of well-off women who were driving themselves and wanted luxury without the punishing ride you got in some earlier performance cars.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And there were other modern features too, right? It wasn't just the suspension.
No, it was quite advanced all around. Proper hydraulic brakes, which was a big deal for stopping something this heavy and fast, safety glass, and a pretty sophisticated 12-volt electrical system.
12 volts, that sounds normal now, but back then.
Cutting edge for 34. It needed that power to handle all the accessories people were starting to expect: electric wipers, indicators, maybe even electric door locks on some custom bodies.
Okay, so technologically advanced, powerful, comfortable. Let's talk about the looks. The 500K wasn't really just one car, was it? It was more like a canvas for different styles.
That's a great way to put it, especially considering how few were made. The total production run is debated, but it's somewhere between 320 and 342 cars in total. Very exclusive.
Wow, only around 340 cars. How were those distributed across different body styles? Did Mercedes build them all in-house?
Most were bodied by Mercedes-Benz's own coachworks, Carrosserie Sindelfingen, and they offered a huge variety, usually built on one of 3 different chassis lengths.
Ah, the chassis lengths. That tells you something about the car's intended purpose, doesn't it?
It really does. You had the short 8 chassis. Wheelbase was about 2,980 millimeters, so just under 9 feet 9 inches.
Short wheelbase usually means sporty, right?
Exactly. This was the performance platform, reserved exclusively for the really sleek 2-seater models. Think the famous Special Roadster and the motorway courier, the Autobahn courier.
Okay, so that's the A. What about the others?
Then you had the longer wheelbase, around 3,290 millimeters, or about 10 feet 9 inches. This length actually covered 2 chassis types, B and C.
What was the difference between B and C?
The B chassis was generally for the 4-seat open cars, like the various cabriolet models, the standard luxury touring versions. The C chassis was structurally beefier.
Beefier for what?
For heavier closed bodies, 4-door saloons, limousines, that sort of thing. Sometimes they even carried armor plating for, state officials or industrialists. So Mercedes really was designing for everything from lightweight speed demons to heavy protected transport.
Incredible range from one model designation.
Yeah.
Given that tiny production number, some styles must be incredibly rare today. Which ones are the holy grails for collectors?
Well, the one that really sends collectors into a frenzy is the Special Roadster. The Special Roadster. Only 29 examples of the 500K were built with that absolutely stunning 2-seater body on the short chassis.
29. That's it.
That's it. The Cabriolet A, another 2-door 4-seater but still very elegant, is also incredibly rare. There's one documented example that's noted as being one of just 11 known survivors today. That kind of scarcity obviously drives the market crazy.
And that's just the bodies from Sindelfingen. This is where it gets really interesting for me when outside coach builders got their hands on a 500K chassis.
Oh yeah, that's when you get truly unique, one-off pieces of rolling art. Think of, there was a unique British custom body on a Mayfair tourer, or the absolutely gorgeous Corsica-bodied 3-position drop-head coupe.
Corsica. They were known for really dramatic design.
They were, and these were commissions for clients who wanted something utterly unique, something to stand out even amongst the already elite group of 500K owners.
That Corsica drophead doesn't it have a fascinating history, kind of woven into pre-war high society.
It really does. It has incredible provenance. It was bought new in 1935 by Sir Max Aitken, Lord Beaverbrook's son, a major figure in British politics and newspapers.
Okay.
Then, just a few years later, in 1938, on the cusp of war, it was owned by Herr Schultz, who was the German ambassador to Great Britain at the time.
Wow, talk about being in the thick of things.
Exactly. That car was literally passing between the hands of major players on the international stage right before everything kicked off. It just shows the kind of prestige these cars had immediately.
And then it went to the U.S.
Yes, it was snapped up pretty quickly in 1939 by D. Cameron Peck, one of the pioneering American car collectors, so its place in history was secured early on.
So, okay, you've got this blend of cutting-edge engineering, incredible style, extreme rarity, maybe 320 cars total, and this kind of historical significance. What does all that mean when these cars come up for sale today? What does it translate to in the collector market?
Well, connecting it to the bigger picture, the 500K sits right at the absolute top tier of pre-war collecting. It's up there with the most desirable Bugattis, like the Type 57 Atlantic or certain Duesenbergs. The average sale price recorded for the W29 chassis, that's the internal code for the 500K, is already, well, astonishing. It's around 2.35 million US dollars.
2.35 million. Average. That tells you the floor is incredibly high. But what about the ceiling? What does a really top-spec perfect example fetch?
Oh, the price just skyrockets from there, depending heavily on the body style and the car's history, its provenance.
Give us some examples. What are the big numbers?
Okay, well, we've seen a 1935 Special Roadster, bodied by Sindelfingen, sell for $5.34 million.
over $5 million.
Another 500K Roadster sold for over 5.9 million US dollars. That was 5.29 million back in 2016. But what's maybe even more fascinating is how the rarity of a specific chassis and body type drives value even when the car isn't perfect.
What do you mean? Like a barn find?
Sort of. Look at the so-called Curricuola Special Coupe. Now, that specific car linked to the famous racing driver is so historically significant and incredibly rare that it sold for $4.13 million.
Okay.
Even though it was explicitly sold as a project car, it needed a massive, probably multi-million-dollar restoration.
So you're paying millions just for the potential, for the history embedded in the metal.
Exactly. You're buying the DNA, the story, the chassis plate, essentially, not the current shiny condition.
It is striking, though, how much the body style dictates that value. You mentioned a special roadster going for over $5 million, but what about, say, one of the four-seat cabriolets?
Right. A rarer four-seat Cabriolet C, for instance, sold for around $600,000, so maybe $700,000 US. Still a huge amount of money, obviously, but nowhere near the Roadster prices.
Which brings us back to that key question, why? Why is that special roadster body style so much more desirable, so much more valuable than the other variants, even the other rare ones?
It really boils down to the two things collectors prize most highly in cars like this: performance image and extreme scarcity.
Performance image, because it was on the short chassis.
Precisely. The Special Roadster was only built on that short, sporty A chassis. It was designed to look and feel nimble fast. Combine that inherent performance potential with that incredibly dramatic, low-slung two-seater styling.
Which is just iconic.
Utterly iconic. And then add the fact that only 29 of the 500Ks were ever made like that. It becomes the ultimate expression of the model. It's the perfect storm. Speed, breathtaking style, and rarity pushed to the absolute limit.
It really does feel like the Mercedes-Benz 500K represents the absolute peak of 1930s Grand Touring, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That balance of immense, supercharged power with genuinely revolutionary comfort and ride quality. Some us rivals just couldn't match back then.
I agree. It truly was the car for the global elite who demanded both thrilling speed and completely unparalleled style and comfort.
And it's amazing how, for a car built in such tiny numbers nearly a century ago, its visual legacy is still so potent. You even see echoes of it in popular culture.
Absolutely. It's often cited as the inspiration, or at least a strong influence, for one of the most famous fictional movie cars ever.
What do you mean?
Cruella de Vil's car.
Yeah.
In Disney's 101 Dalmatians, her dramatic red and black automobile, well, it strongly resembles the lines, the presence of a 500K Cabriolet or Roadster.
You can totally see that resemblance. The long bonnet, the flowing fenders.
Mm-hmm. It captures that same sense of imposing, slightly menacing luxury.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, listening today, when you see these multi-million-dollar prices for a restored 500K? It's worth remembering what you're actually paying for.
Yeah, it's not just the metal, the leather, the paint. You're buying a piece of engineering history. You're buying that world-first independent suspension system that let the super-rich glide over roads while almost everyone else was still rattling along.
And you're buying the sound, the experience of that root-driven supercharger kicking in, screaming up to 180 horsepower whenever you demanded it.
Exactly. That's definitely something to mull over the next time you look at a cutting-edge, modern luxury sports car. Technology obviously moves on, but that fundamental definition of automotive excellence, incredible speed, combined with effortless comfort and undeniable style, you could argue it was perfected right there with the 500K back in 1934.
A truly remarkable machine. Well, thanks for tuning into Vintage Noise. We'll see you next time.